say paper and recycle.
Where are you going to have the other two sit? Here and there? This is as far as they go.
I just kind of passed out at 8 o'clock last night.
I fell asleep on my couch.
Yeah.
And then woke up at 3 and then went to bed.
Yep.
THC.
Yeah, that's it. Organization.
Yeah.
Good to see. Oh, I saw Mr. Chris.
Basically, they're
Oh my God, it's so
I haven't
good.
needed to go there. Is the hype worth it?
Oh, it's amazing. I've been like 10 times. I go, you know Lauren Gilbert?
Oh, yeah.
We've been going. We went the second day it opened because we gone so often. The owners know who we are now.
Nice.
And like, I mean, they're wonderful.
Nice.
Like the care that they take with us all, I mean, it's rotating menus, so
Yeah.
they just get to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Start with produce and it's amazing. They make all their own bread. But it's great because you really go anywhere you want.
Yeah, it's always a new experience. Yeah, I mean, Andrew and I need to try it out.
Yeah, you should. It really, it's awesome. Even just to like, sit in the bar.
Yeah.
They do this thing where it's big family meal where they only serve one thing.
Yeah.
And it's
Good morning.
priceless.
We had, I'm going to call to order the Senate Committee on Agriculture Subcommittee Hemp, and Madam Clerk just stepped out for a moment. All right, we have 3 members on the committee, so Hobie, we have a quorum, don't we? All right. First of all, my name is Joe Morrissey, and I represent the 16th Senate District. Senator, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Dave Suderline, represent Roanoke Valley and Powder, Southwest Virginia.
Folks, most of the heavy lifting in committees and subcommittees, in my opinion, aren't done necessarily by senators, but by staff and the staff attorney. So would the, Dave, would you introduce yourself to folks?
I'm David Berry. I'm with the Division of Legislative Services.
Catherine, thank you for your help. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Catherine, and I work in the clerk's office.
All right. Folks, we have 3 bills to discuss today, and let me just say at the onset that this is the first time that I've chaired this subcommittee, and this is the inaugural meeting of this subcommittee. I have a minor in chemistry from the University of Virginia. Notwithstanding that, I don't understand every other word in some of these bills. So I'm going to ask some of the authors of these bills, when they explain it, to explain it as if a 10-year-old could understand it. If anybody, I'm just curious, by a show of hands, anybody out there, can they tell me what tetrahydrocannabinol is? What? Oh, I'm impressed. At least 5 hands went up. How about post-decarboxylation? Oh my goodness. You should be chairing this committee. I still have nightmares. I took organic chemistry at UVA, nightmares regarding alkenes, alkynes, and alkanes. In my nightmare, the exam is coming up the next morning, and I haven't even opened the book. So That's where I'm coming from. What we're gonna do is start with Senator Surville's bill. I know that Senator Ruff and Senator Marsden have a bill. Senator Ruff, welcome. That's perfect timing. Senator Ruff, if you could introduce yourself to the folks in the audience.
Frank Ruff, I represent the 15th Senate District, which includes a lot of Southern Virginia.
All right, we're going to go with Senator Surville's bill first, followed by Senator Marsden. Senator Ruff, as is the policy, the members of the committee will take up the bill last. We only have 3 bills. Senator Surville, you have SB 646.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senate Bill 646 is an attempt to conform Virginia's Hemp Act and Virginia's criminal definitions relating to hemp and marijuana to federal law, so that we can continue to enforce, avoid confusion, I guess, in the enforcement of both laws. Just as a side note, much of this bill that you have in front of you, this
21 pages.
21-page bill, much of it is probably courts committee material, but because the very first code section is in 3.2, you guys got it. So
Good.
so in any event, I think it was last year, or no, it was 2018. United States Congress, I think, it amended the Farm Act. As part of that, the Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, I believe, issued a new definition, or a clear definition of what hemp is. And under that definition, I believe hemp is defined as having a certain THC content, which I believe is about 0.3%. My understanding is that today's marijuana typically has percentages of THC upwards of 15 or 20%, and hemp has a very small amount. The actual active, psychoactive piece of THC is something called Delta 9 THC. It's a specific type of THC, and what this bill seeks to do is charge DFS with coming up with a specific. If you look at lines 93 through 98, charges the Department of Forensic Science for coming up with a proper method of detecting a specific concentration of Delta 9 THC in substances for purposes of the Hemp Act and the Criminal Code, so that we don't have people possessing hemp getting convicted of possessing marijuana under the Criminal Code. And so this defines what hemp is, so that it's distinct and different from marijuana, and it makes clear throughout the Criminal Code how that works.
To summarize it, it defines what hemp is, but also conforms the Virginia hemp law with federal regulations. Is that right?
The Federal Farm Bill and USDA interim final rule.
Okay. I have no idea whether or not this bill has any great opposition, but first of all, if you're finished, Senator Surville, if we can have any proponents of this bill that wish to address it, come forward now. Okay, come on. We're very informal. Come forward, please identify yourself and tell us, first of all, whether you're a supporter of the bill and then how you say.
My name is Linda Jackson. I'm the director of the Department of Forensic Science, and we appreciate Senator Surville carrying this bill for us. It is an agency bill, and we are very supportive of this bill in that it aligns how regulatory testing for hemp is already being done in Virginia with how the same testing can be done on the criminal side, so that they are done in a similar manner, so that if you had the material tested on the regulatory side, it would give you the same answer, hopefully, as if you got it tested on the criminal side.
Would DFS test it on the regulatory side as well?
No, sir.
Who would do that testing?
Currently, the Division of Consolidated Laboratory Services under the Department of General Services is doing that testing.
Mike? Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm more familiar with our criminal labs like we have on Peters Creek Road in Roanoke. So can you make me understand where these other labs are and how many of them we have and how that functions, the DGS ones you mentioned?
So the lab that you mentioned on Peters Creek Parkway, that is one of our laboratories for the Department of Forensic Science. The Consolidated Laboratories is only located in Richmond, and it is it's across the street from us near the Coliseum, here downtown.
Thank you.
Division of Forensic Science, Linda, tests any drug, Schedule 1, Schedule 2 drug, or alleged controlled substance, correct?
Yes,
For,
in a
for
criminal matter.
in a criminal prosecution. How does this change things as far as testing items suspected to be hemp for regulatory control?
So the biggest difference is that on the regulatory side, the testing of tetrahydrocannabinol has been defined as testing for the delta-9 THC, which is that psychoactive component, as well as any delta-9 THC acid, which is present in the plant material, because when the plant material is heated, that THC acid turns into THC and therefore, would give the same effect on the body. And so on the regulatory side, and the testing has been to test both. That has been unclear on the criminal side, and so we wanted to put the language in, and we use language from the USDA interim rule, which is what has come out, which all states have to, when they put out their regulatory plan for being able to regulate hemp in the Commonwealth, they will need to meet those criteria.
Okay. Folks, you now know why I went to law school instead of medical school. After taking chemistry and organic chemistry, I decided that law school was a better route. Listen, I think you've explained it thoroughly. Is there any other senator have any other questions of Senator
Not
Ruff?
exactly on target, but what is your capacity to handle the testing of this? How far, what's your backlog?
So currently our backlog for controlled substances, our turnaround times are approximately 123 days, which is actually down from last year because the General Assembly did give us some additional folks with the COVID crisis and so forth. So our turnaround times have improved and they're continuing to improve as folks come out of training. Currently, or previous to the Hemp Act, we did not accept simple possession of marijuana cases unless there was a court order to do so because of the statutory language for using the field test. That field test that was previously approved is no longer able to, it is not able to differentiate between the types of cannabis, the marijuana and hemp, and so we are now accepting simple possession of marijuana. I know there's a lot in flux with marijuana and during this session, so it's hard to really, it's hard to guess what will happen with submissions to our agency for analyses of marijuana. But we have worked with DCJS, the Criminal Justice Services, to receive a grant to purchase field test kits, which can help differentiate between the hemp and marijuana, and we've distributed those to law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth so that they have a tool to help decide whether something should be looked at criminally or whether it should be handled in the regulatory vein.
Any-
Chairman,
Mr.
the reason
Senator
I
Ruff.
asked the question is that we're talking about the agricultural product, which can deteriorate in value if it's held too long, if things are not correctly done. So I have no problem with Senator's bill, but I just think we may need to look at this a little bit more closely. Temporary emergency federal regulations will drive most of the people into the business. They cannot risk losing an entire crop because of not land.
All right, well put. Any other questions of Ms. Jackson? All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Yes, we do actually have.
I'm sorry, this is the line amendments I forgot about.
Oh.
The Board of Pharmacy requested some amendments.
these out, but I can also just explain what they are really quickly.
Mr. Barry?
Mr. Chair, the line amendments largely do the same thing. We are just returning the original language on, I believe, 5 different places. So we are unstriking the tetrahydrocannabinol and striking the delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol. So just returning it to regular THC as a broad category and striking the specific delta 9 THC. And we're doing that only in a few places, not every place where it appears. So I'm just going to read the lines where it appears. That would be on line 85, line 280, line 564 and 65, and line 993.
Right.
And then there's one more amendment that is returning, instead of having the entire Drug Control Act cited on line 95, that will instead cite to 2 specific sections that appear in the bill. Those sections are section 54.1-3401 and 54.1-3446.
Thank you, David. Senator, does that change your bill at all? Are you in agreement with those amendments?
I have no problem with it.
All right, I'm going to move the 7 committee amendments. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. In favor, against? Ayes have it. Those amendments are made part of the bill. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, and please tell the folks down at DFS that I said hello, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, anybody else speaking in on behalf of this bill? Come on. Please state your name and
My name is Dr. Rebecca Catherine, and I own an independent DEA licensed third-party testing laboratory in Logan, Virginia. We have our Schedule I DEA licenses. We perform hemp testing, and we'll be able to perform the medical marijuana testing when the dispensaries come online. I support the bill. I thank Senator Servo for introducing the bill. I particularly like the thoughtful language where laboratories are not restricted to one technology. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. So in terms of testing for the THCA or delta 9 THC, which we add together to make the total, some states will say, well, they must use this technology, but of course you can use many technologies to get that same answer. And I appreciate the flexibility in the language so that the state is not dictating to me what technology to use. Also, as an aside, I agree with Senator Ruff that 0.3% is far too low, and hopefully the USDA will define hemp as having a larger amount of total THC so that our farmers don't get penalized.
okay, thank you. Any questions of Dr. Caffrey? All right, hearing none, thank you, Dr. Caffrey, and good luck with your fledgling business. Anybody else want to speak in support of Senator Servo's bill? Anybody against? All right, we operate by motions. Anybody moved, senators move to report this bill? Recommend report. I so move. Do we have a second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Senator Servo. This is an easy job. All right, Senator Marsden, you're next. Right.
Senate Bill 918.
Can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yes, this proposed legislation is the result of a work group convened by the Secretaries of Agriculture and Forestry and Health and Human Resources at the request of the General Assembly to prepare a report on the appropriate standards, if any, for the production of an oil with a THC concentration of no greater than 0.3% that is derived from industrial hemp. This is an administration bill. This is essentially what we're setting up a regulatory process to manage the production of hemp-derived CBD oil in the Commonwealth for products that will be defined as food. And there are just basically 6 quick things here that it does. Proposed legislation amends the Food and Drink Law of Virginia to define industrial hemp extract as an extract of a cannabis sativa plant that has a concentration of THC that is no greater than that allowed by federal law and is intended for human consumption, and to establish that an industrial hemp extract is a food. and that's just consistent language with how this is described in law. Maybe not the way we ordinarily think of food. Requires the Board of Agriculture and Consumer Services to adopt regulations that identify contaminants of industrial hemp extracts, establish tolerances for the identified contaminants, and establish labeling and batch testing requirements for industrial hemp extracts. It puts the process on a advanced schedule. It goes outside of the APA. We want to get this done quickly because it's a competitive issue with other states. We want to get this out and up. But it will be exempt from the Administrative Act. The legislation also establishes criteria by which manufacturers of industrial hemp-derived extract intended for human consumption or food containing an industrial hemp extract may be considered an approved source. So, and then the proposed legislation creates a special non-reverting fund to deal with fees collected for the operation of the program that VDAX will run. And the legislation also includes an enactment clause that requires by November 1st, 2020, that the Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, in consultation with the Secretary of Administration, report to the Governor and the General Assembly on a plan for the long-term sustainability of funding for the industrial hemp program, with considerations to include the cost of testing of the THC concentration of hemp crops grown in Virginia as required by state and federal law. This is basically the setup of all the protocols that are going to run this industry, the regulatory processes by which it will be done so that our farmers can produce these products that I am hoping certainly that we can hold other states to our standards to make sure we're not selling junk at convenience stores that people are going to get that will have contaminants in them or will say that they have CBD when they don't. This will set this up as a viable industry for Virginia. We've dealt with the medical cannabis that was started 5 years ago. That's being handled through a separate regulatory process. They did a really good job of setting that up, and I have every indication and hope that this will be set up equivalently to manage the hemp-derived products, much as we've dealt with the CBD marijuana plant products. So that's the deal.
So just to distill it down, this bill will establish an industrial hemp extract as a food, and it sets certain conditions and requirements.
And it will set the regulatory process to be set up to be approved. I think there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, but it sets up the mechanism for making sure that that will happen through the appropriate state agencies.
All right. Any questions by the subcommittee?
Mr. Chairman, not a question.
Senator Ruff.
Still think we need to step back to this a little bit. Structure. The bill passed in December of 18. Delegate Marshall and I put in last year to get us started. We have one crop out in the field this year. People are excited about it. But as the federal regulations, the temporary regulations, which may last up to a couple of years, put out there, they set up a scenario that there would be a lot of losers in this process. If you look at other states, that 0.03 is the federal
Is the
design.
federal limit .03 or .3?
Point
.3, right.
What North Carolina has done is they defined that 3 is up to 3 now. So there are various things happening out there. I don't know that it's extremely important that we get this bill out this week. And my bill started out was simply just to reflect whatever federal regulations were written. But when I saw the damage, the risk of damage to economic damage to the farmers out there, so we've got to figure out some way to get around, get ahead of this rather than trail it.
So I don't know if you were here previously with Scott's bill, but Senator Ruff's concern is that here's the first crop, that has been produced or has been harvested or is getting ready to be harvested, and the testing may be, I think you referred to it as a hot crop or a hot plant, and meaning that it may test above the 0.3 level, and there's a concern that a farmer could lose his or her entire crop. A valid concern. Can you address that, or do you have an expert that
Well,
can address
I
that?
can address part of it, and then we have folks here from VDAX, but North Carolina, I think they have gotten around this through, they have a pilot program that sort of allows for that. The federal 0.3 is still there. If there's any way that we can figure out a way, I wish we could go to 1.0, to be honest with you. It's still not something that anybody would want to go into a hemp field and try to smoke. As somebody said in one of my work groups, is that they'd be very, very disappointed. But what it would allow to happen, these seeds cost $5.50 a piece. You can buy 36,000 fiber seeds for $5.50, but this stuff is very expensive. And if we were allowed, if somehow or another the federal rule was such that we could leave the plant in the ground longer to mature, get a better crown, we would get more CBD from it. The farmer would. It would be of a good quality, as long as we're getting the THC out of it in the processing process. That's the key, is what's going out the door, not so much what's in the field. But right now we're mandated, and I think that's part of Senator Ruff's concern, is that in the a farmer could come up with a hot crop and be ordered to burn his field.
Let me clarify that. He could come up with, Mr. Chairman, he could have one hot plant in the entire field. He can't control what water, soil, sun are going to do in every plant. We need to figure out how we can turn this and have the testing done by the processor, not the grower. The grower cannot control it. In tobacco, it has nicotine in it. Nobody has ever asked a grower to try to control the nicotine. That's done by the big companies who blended various crops together. And they can do that. All these processors have been done.
Mr. Chairman, and that is the hope, that this process will set up something in that arena.
Senator Ruff, does that assuage your concern, or do you want to hear more from an expert? Because Senator
I'm
Martin.
delighted to hear from an expert,
All right.
but I know where they're going to come from. They're going to
Let's hear briefly from Senator Martin. If you can call one of the experts here.
Brad Copenhaver, Assistant Secretary in the Department of Agriculture.
Morning, Secretary. We spoke briefly this morning. You heard Senator Ruff's concern. Can you address that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Ruff, thank you for the question. I think in this process, I'd like to draw the distinction between what this bill is addressing and what your bill last year addressed. Your bill last year set up our Virginia Industrial Hemp Program, which is concentrating on the growing of the plant. And that's where the 0.3% in the field and the USDA regulations are causing some problems, which I think is a discussion that is an important discussion to have, but not related to this bill, which is about regulating the extracted oil, which is a product intended for human consumption. So we're talking about products here that are orally ingested. Just, Mr. Chairman, if I might give you a little bit of background on how we got to this point from an administration standpoint. Last year, in the discussion on your bill, Senator Ruff, the General Assembly then asked secretaries to get together to come up with recommendations on how to regulate those products. So over the summer, Secretary Ring and Secretary Kerry worked together. We had a really great working relationship between VDAX and the Department of Health Professions, Board of Pharmacy. The recommendations that we came up with on the products themselves, this is the oil that is then extracted from the hemp plant, mostly CBD oils, to mirror what the Board of Pharmacy's regulations are on the medical cannabis program that they've already set up and have been working on for a number of years. So we had a lot of legwork done previous to our work group, which we're very happy to see. But I think importantly, just want to draw the distinction between this bill, which is on the products themselves, and Senator Ruff's concerns, which I think are really merits of conversation on the products or the plants themselves in the field, which the USDA interim final rule deals with.
This is an ongoing process, and it's interesting to see that a senator from Fairfax County, who was involved in a lot of criminal justice issues involving juveniles, is involved in the introducing legislation controlling and regulating the hemp industry. I find that fascinating.
There you
Good.
There you are.
Any questions of the secretary? All right, anybody else in favor of the bill? All right, briefly, folks, come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Kyle Shreve of the Virginia Agribusiness Council. I agree wholeheartedly with what Senator Ruff has said, that we had provided comments to USDA, and a lot of the problems that we've seen as we've tried to set up our industrial hemp program here in Virginia stems from the federal government. As you can imagine, we are trying to work through to make sure Virginia is competitive, and I do agree that some more latitude at the farm level is absolutely warranted. However, we want to make sure that we are in compliance with federal regs to make sure that we have a state-approved plan. It has been the priority of our membership so far. We see this as one more step in that process. On the processing side, Mr. Copeter is exactly correct. And so we do support the bill to make sure that processed products that are intended for human consumption can continue to be sold here and tested here to make sure that we don't have any a poor sample or an adulterated product, much as the rest of the food industry causes the entire industry harm, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
And done in conformity with federal regulation.
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. Please come on. We're informed. Come forward. State your name.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Davis. I am a forensic scientist, forensic toxicologist, drug testing, and I want to thank Senator Marston for presenting her bill as far as making the quality and of the products produced in Virginia to be safe. I also have several years' experience with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, helping write and draft legislation for some alternate matrices testing of hair and oral fluids, as well as consolidating all the comments that come in as a result of public comment and that sort of thing. So I understand the delicate balance of legislation versus regulation, and I also understand the importance of having clear legislation so that the regulation is possible. So to that end, I have just a couple of suggestions maybe of a couple of changes that I would like to offer under the regulatory aspect. One line talks about the board may require batch testing of industrial hemp. I would like to suggest perhaps changing that to shall or will. I think the may leaves open the opportunity that someone may not have to require the testing.
Which line is it?
It's on D.
I'm sorry.
Line 61.
All right. Senator Marsden, if you'll look at that too. Go ahead.
The board, instead of may require, I'd like to see it say shall or will, something a little more
Okay.
definitive. If it's gonna be a product that's gonna be consumed, I think it should be required to be tested, and not that may or may not be tested.
I don't think you would have any great angst against that change, would you, Senator?
I defer to,
That's fine.
I'm seeing you. All right. I'm going to ask the staff attorney to make that, change that from may to, we'll have to do this by motion. All right. It is line 60 where it says the board may require that batch testing, et cetera. That word may would be shall. So I'm going to move that amendment. Do we have a second? Have a second. All those in favor say aye. Nays. Ayes have it. So that amendment, excuse me, has been made, and thank you for that suggestion. But I think you said you had two.
I do, sir, thank you. My second suggestion, I know, a couple lines before this, when I just mentioned, it talks about labeling requirements. I would
Which
like
line? It's
Number
okay.
C.
See, that's, yeah, line 57.
Right.
The board shall adopt regulations establishing labeling requirements.
Right, I would like to add, also a temper evident packaging, so that when we get to the regulatory aspect, that tamper evident packaging becomes part of something that's required. In the forensic science field, we've already seen some of these hemp and CBD products, being adulterated at the shop level, post-packaging. So we would like to request respectfully that, some sort of, regulatory requirement for tamper evident
tamper-proof?
Tamper evident, so that, someone's tried to open the packaging, everything comes with that horrible plastic you gotta saw through to get, or some sort of tamper evident packaging, so that you can tell whether someone has altered or opened the product prior to, between the production and the consumption.
Right, before we get to the exact verbiage of it, let me just get a sense, is there, from the folks out, Senator,
The only concern would be that it's to ask Brad the question, I don't want to start writing the regulations
Right,
here.
right.
That's what this is setting up, and we're already starting to, to put
In
this
the
in the
weeds,
code,
right.
and I would, unless there's any objection, I'd like to keep this to the code, to the regulatory process and not start trying to do it right here.
We're comfortable with the way the language currently is. If, I think tamper evident packaging is getting a little too specific. If the board were to take something into consideration, packaging requirements themselves may be something.
okay, first of all, that was a good suggestion, but I think the gist of the senator's bill is to, the bill will establish certain requirements and conditions, and that's something that I think that can be taken up during that process. So, thank you for that, but unless I hear a motion to insert the verbiage tamper evident packaging, it's well made, but it'll be considered down the road, all right? Thank you very much. No, appreciate you coming forward. All right, doctor, you're back again.
I never shut up. Dr. Rebecca Caffrey, Delta 9 Scientific, thank you very much for introducing the bill, and I'm super, thank you for amending the language from may to shall. I think it's very important that the testing is compulsory. My observation is that, and suggestion is that, this bill does set forth treatment of these oils and derived products as a food. And I would like to make the observation that people use them as drugs, they use them as medicine. And so one of the discussions in the bill is regarding labeling. And you know, if you go into a pharmacy and you buy cough medicine or aspirin or anything else, there will be a lot number or a batch number, which increases the traceability so that if you get sick, if something happens, there can be a recall. As a testing facility, I can tell you, I get THC oils, salves, everything you can imagine, gummies, and I test them for CBD and THC content. And not one single one ever has a batch or a lot number on it, which means if somebody is sick, there is no way to go back and trace that to the manufacturer, to a specific lot, to a specific extraction batch.
If I could
And
just
that's
stop you there,
the
so I
problem.
think what you're saying is that on line 57, where it says the board shall adopt regulations establishing labeling requirements, you're suggesting maybe a certain protocol for how that's labeled.
Yes.
And unless somebody has an objection, I think that's in the same line of where we were a few moments ago. Very good point, but it's something that actually the bill will consider down the road. But thank you for that.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
and thank you for your support. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Ben Rose, speaking on behalf of Virginia Farm Bureau. To echo the senator's comments, this is a fledgling industry. The administration, the legislature, and the industry are all working together to make sure we have laws and regulations that keep consumers safe, but also keep our farmers and processors competitive with resources with this bill.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any opposition to the bill? All right, not seeing any, we again operate by motion.
Mr. Chair, I do have one
Please.
quick typo to correct.
Sure, David.
If you just noticed on lines 53 and 54, we've just got the incorrect citation, so it should be 3.2-5145.5. That would follow along with all of the other sections above it.
All right.
And so that would be at the end of line 53, and then the catch line on line 54.
Okay, so that'll be, I'm gonna move that amendment. Does everybody understand what David said? Line 53, the headline, with regulations, there's a typo. It should be 5145, good catch, David. And then also line, what was the other line where we had?
53 right above it, at the
Fif-
end, citing to that section.
Line 53. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move those amendments. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye, aye, nays, ayes have it. Aye. Anything else? Aye. Did I move a moment ago this referral to the full commit, the agriculture committee? Aye, I'm now gonna move referral to the committee. Do we have a second?
I can't second it because I'm gonna abstain. Not that I'm against it, I wanna make sure we get as many elements as we can in this. So one more time will help us accomplish that.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sitterly.
I'm not sure this is necessary procedurally, but I think this might reflect the views Senator Ruff and I have at least. I would like to make a motion. It's going to advance the
Substitute
full
motion?
committee. Yes, it's going to advance the full committee either way for their consideration. But I would just move that it advance with no recommendation, so we can continue having some of these conversations.
All right, Barry, I'm gonna take that as that's a substitute motion. I think that takes precedence over my motion. Is that correct?
Ask Catherine, I'm not exactly sure.
Catherine, the motion is a substitute motion to refer it without recommendation. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that's proper. Okay.
And I would second that.
All right, well, that's gonna be the motion that's been made and seconded to refer to the full committee without a recommendation. It's not what you wanted, but we'll take it up in full committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right.
The one thing, Mr. Chairman, if, to give it more time, do you have some things in mind, Senator Ruff, that people you want to talk to, things you want to do, looking at the bill to perhaps amend it? Or
Well, I'm trying to, Mr. Chairman, what I'm trying to do is figure out how we can get the testing, get the processor.
All right. So I'm gonna suggest, Senator Ruff, that the folks, the experts who know a lot more than I do and probably on the same level that you,
They know more than I do. I know.
you all get
I know
together.
what's happening in the field.
Right. You all get together with Senator Marsden, talk about it, and I kind of glean from the conversation that we're going to be able to come up with an agreement before the full Agriculture Committee. Senator Marsden, thank you very much. All right, last bill is Senator Ruff's bill, SB 827, and
Mr. Chairman, I would like to not deal with that today.
okay, is there a motion to pass it by for the day?
Second.
All right, that motion has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That bill will be passed by for the day. That concludes the first meeting of the Hemp Subcommittee. Thank you very much.
That's good.
No, just as a memento of this time together.
Hey, this was the inaugural hemp subcommittee.